The seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Yes, here we go. It is the T.N.F, the Thursday Night Forum, the night we hand over the keys to the passengers. And tonight I am joined by the judge. There's a bit of alliteration there that was catching me out. Tonight I am joined by the judge. Mr. Mark Kearney is in the house. We've got lots to talk about. Obviously, the aftermath of Celtic's Champions League departure. It's been another busy day on the old social media for your pal Boise Mark. Loads of people call me nasty names and stuff, but that's okay because the fact of the matter is, mate, sometimes you've just got to give your honest opinion if that's what you want to do. Now, I'm not one of these people that subscribe to always, when you go into the shed, Mark, for example, right, and you see a spade, you don't need to always shout spade at it, right? I hate, see when you meet someone for the first ever time and they go, see what I do, I tell it like it is, man, right? I just, I call a spade, I'm like, oh, they're going to be trouble. But sometimes when you give loads of opinions on things or you're asked your opinion on something, it's perfectly okay to call a spade a spade. And on that note, I think there's several home truths we can say about Celtic right now. There's also several things we can be extremely positive about, and a lot of things that we can be very hopeful for the future, because Celtic are, despite the fact it's a very disappointing exit to the Champions League campaign, I think there's still, the foundations are there for future successes. It'll just be whether we see them through or not. We'll be talking about all that, and obviously it is back to domestic duties before this ridiculous time of the World Cup begins as well, Mark, and we'll need to try and get by without Celtic for yet another month. It doesn't feel like the summer was that long ago, big boy, but here we go again. Anyway, that's further down the line. Mr. Kearney, how the devil are you, mate? It's good to have you on the T.N.F again, pal.
I'm doing very well, mate. How are you, boys? How's things?
I'm good, mate. Apart from doing my best to try and look like Boris Johnson these days, man, I'm doing all right.
It's a bit more tidy than that, mate, but you gave it a go at least, you know what I mean? You gave it a go.
34 years old now, honestly. 35 this weekend, fuck. But I still dyeing my hair. One wee thing in the comments, I seen a comment, I'll not bother saying names and stuff, it's not my style, but I'm not having anything like when it comes to like homophobic and stuff like that in the comments. That's not us. It's not what happens in the bus. It wasn't aimed at us, but it's just that I don't care whether it's aimed at someone who, folk think we fell out with, or they think we fell out. I don't care. There's lines that cannot be crossed as far as I'm concerned with the comments, and it's no on stuff like that. So keep the comments clean, because one thing we do encourage is feisty debate, I would call it, Mark. We're always for that. And we know it can get a bit mischievous. We know it can get, the rascals will come out and, we'll get pelters, Mark, for whatever. And I'm all for it. Obviously, a lot of people agree with us as well. I'm not saying that like poor little us. We love what we do. And I like to see the comment chat lively, but there's got to be certain lines drawn. And there's got to be, because there's one thing I'll not put up with. I've got a job, a full-time job. Mark's got a full-time job. It takes one screen grab when I've blindly brought up a comment, not even realising what the content of it says. Someone screen grabs that, shows it to one of our bosses at our work, and before you know it, we could be out of job. So you've got to be a wee bit responsible in the comments for us guys at the very least. This isn't what we do for a living. This is just fun, right? And let's keep it that way, and let's stick to the football. Mark Kearney, it has been a European campaign. I'm going to be completely honest. Oh, and before we start that, all the good stuff. Like, share, subscribe, become a member. All that. I hate doing all that stuff. But Phil does it so much better. Anyway, Mark, this European group campaign, you were, by me, to be fair, being, with the Grim Reaper sort of predictions and that, I'm going, for fuck's sake, man. This group, we can do something, mate. Come on. I'm like, your prediction was the most accurate. Now, you'll get no credit for that, of course, from anyone. I'll give you credit for it, but no one else will, because you're just being negative for negative sake, of course, Mark, as opposed to...
Of course, mate, of course.
Which I know you were just being realistic from your prism. I was being realistic what I think from mine. Maybe that's why I'm in a more disappointed state than what you are probably. I think you're probably sitting there going, I'm okay. I thought this would happen. But now that the group stage has been done, I asked the Terry and Phil this last night, and I want your take now as well, because you were very much looking at this from the start, from a different way. The two lads I had on last night were. I would like to find out where you're at now that the 6 games done. That's it's a Champions League campaign, or a league campaign, whatever you want to call it. That is, the format is, it's a 6-game round robin. That's it. That's now all said and done. How does Mark Kearney feel about how the groups went overall?
I think you can take it in 3 stages, Boise. I think if you look at the first 2 games, it was optimism shown about how we could perform in the group. I think match 3 and match 4 was a wee bit of realism. Saying with the Celtic fans, I thought somebody still thought that there was scope to qualify, at least to the very least, to the UEFA Cup. And I think match 5 and match 6 was just a case of getting out of the way. It was already done, and it was a case of just seeing it the last 2 games and seeing what credibility we could get out of the group. I think 2 draws out of 6 games. To be quite honest with you, it isn't the worst. Although you've got to touch on this, it isn't the very worst we could do in a Champions League group. I think there was victories there if we wanted them. I think in a group stage tinged with bad finishing and close calls and hard luck stories, I think when you play your striker who needs 5 chances to score the 6 and drop somebody who scores 1 every 2, I think you're taking chances there. I think Giakoumakis suited these high strike rate games. By that I mean we need players who are going to be 1 every 2, 1 every 3 chances. They're at least testing the goalkeeper in a serious way. I don't think Kyogo provides that at the Champions League level or UEFA Cup level. I think Kyogo is just as likely to score a 30-yarder as he is to miss a 2-yard open goal, to be quite honest with you. I love the guy. He's one of my favourite players. But I think since day one, I remember my brother Ryan said it to me before, he'll miss 4 before he score 5 mark, before he score the 5th, and I agree with him. I think I've broken it into 3 parts. I think the first 2 was just full of optimism. I listened to a lot of pods, as you know, boys, saying I was kind of gathering the kind of mood music, and a lot it was.
So you could think differently from them all, eh?
I take it all the wee. But there's I see different wee pools of thought, and I go, right, and man, all the country thinks different. You know what I mean? But can I tell you something? See, listening to almost them all that I was listening to, I got the impression that match 3, match 4, match 5, Celtic were going to pick up a minimum of 4, if no 7 points. That didn't materialise, and I couldn't believe the mindset at the time. I was still convinced that Celtic had the opportunity to finish second or third. I thought Celtic, there was scope for us to progress in this tournament, but I thought it was a bit naive by some of the Celtic fans to think that we can look at any matches at this level and start ticking off points that count our chickens before they've hatched. And that was proven to me in match day 4, I think. And
Okay.
I think Celtic will take. I think there'll be more positives coming out of the Champions League campaign. That if you sat down and thought about it objectively, don't merit. I think if you actually looked at the actual stats per matches, you will see these golden nuggets of chances created, shots on target. But you're going to hit us with a couple of stats in a minute that may surprise folk. But there's also a polarised effect to that, and that is what chances we left at the back. And when you're creating as many chances as you're giving away, but on the finishing, then at that level, boys, there's no way you're going to progress in a tournament of this standard. And Celtic found out the hard way, some harder than others. I chalked it off to a season of just progressing without any suffering injuries, and for me, it's full steam ahead on the league.
Well, it is. I mean, I was given my own version of some sort of rallying cry, I think, by the end of the show last night, Mark. But I mean, there was a lot of, I still stand by what I was saying last night. I think we need to be now. I want a Celtic reaction from this group, because I'll be completely honest with you. I'm very, very split on how I feel about the group.
Mm-hmm.
I am very much. I see it from both sides, and I suppose no argument, Mark, is ever one-sided. There's always balance, right?
There's truth in the middle.
The truth tends to be in the middle. In this instance, I feel like I'm really strongly, when I look at the group stage, I look at some stats. We're going to talk about some stats in a bit, which isn't my thing, the very basic stats. But I think it can put to bed the myth that if we took all our chances, that anyway. When I look at the group, at the end of the day, we didn't fucking win a game out of 6. Maybe my frustration comes from the fact I thought we were going to do better. So I've went from there to there. You wonders about that. I remember the exact conversation, and you says, if you've not got any expectations, you can't be disappointed, boys. And I remember you telling me that. And I thought, fucking bastard, he's wrong. You were right. And that's maybe why you're taking it a lot more, in your stride, perhaps, is what I have. However, the other side of it is, despite all that frustration, I do see a manager who, whether it's protecting, firstly, the players, and I do like to believe that he is protecting the players. When he came out last night, it was one of his interviews, he said, how proud he was of them all because of what they've done and stuff. And I like that. And he sounded almost emotional, would be a strong word, but it was quite passionate. He doesn't really change his tone often. This one, he kind of pushed the boundaries of his monotone, Marks, just ever so slightly, right? And he went, I'm really proud of the boys. And I thought, fair play. I think what he does is he gives fans hope. This is being highlighted right now because, obviously, with our rivals' efforts in Europe, they weren't given hope for match day 1. They got scalped in their first game and were told, we're not good enough to compete at this level. We can't do it. Right? Effectively, I'm paraphrasing poor wee Gio, but he said stuff like that, right? So it was a very negative approach. And I don't think, I know English isn't his first language, but I don't think he's ever given the fans that sort of belief for his comments. He's maybe just a realistic guy, Mark. Maybe, that's how it would be. If you were in charge of Celtic, we'd be feeling these views because he's just telling his truth. Whereas Ange has been very brave, and he is definitely providing Celtic with hope. Even when the results are shite, somehow he's masking it over, right? And the results haven't been unbelievable. I suppose when I look at the group, the one thing that's, I think, glaring in it is, while Celtic are 16, 17 months into this project, call it what you will, I think it's fanciful to think this is 16, 17 months of a 5-6 year thing. Managers' average shelf life is around 3 years. So I think we're about halfway into it. The Shakhtar team that we finished below, I think when I look back, that'll be my bone of contention more so than the other two teams. All right. I think we underestimated RB Leipzig because Rangers put them out the year before. Therefore, we thought we had a God-given right to be taking points off them. Maybe a point away, probably 3 at home was the sort of narrative. 4 points against a team that can spend 30-40 million on a player, per player. But you look at the Shakhtar when you go, well, what stage of any sort of process are they? Their whole squad was absolutely stripped because players from, a lot of them from Brazil all went back to or across Europe, wherever they may have went. 10 out of their 11 players were actually Ukrainian now. A lot of them weren't part of the Shakhtar squad year before that, So what stage of a process were they? I don't think at any stage like ours. Not saying that we are miles into ours either, but they also weren't even playing at home. They were playing in Warsaw. When they do play their league football, it's in front of no crowds. And obviously, you've got to take into account, I don't mean in a snidey way, but obviously everything that's going on there, you would forgive them for having a terrible campaign. You would, because they've got so much going on in their homeland outside of football. What that does mean, I don't mean it in a bad way, was they were there for the taking. I think over the 2 games, we proved they were there for the kids because they tend to be quite sharp. 7 of the 11 of Shakhtar came through their youth system. So that's not about the money. That's not about the financial disparity. And I'm going to get to that as well later today. I think the bone of contention I've got is there was a team there that gave us memories. We gave their supporters memories, Mark. Celtic haven't done that in a long time, have they? And I don't mean Shakhtar have given their fans memories by drawing with us twice. What I mean is the points they picked up elsewhere. We weren't able to remotely do that. And I think the Shakhtar team there was one that we should have really been targeting. 6 points. I'm not exaggerating there. I think that, based on what I've seen, by the way, in the 2 performances, I think that should have been 6 points for Celtic. And I think we'll rue the fact when we see them in the Europa League and they might potentially struggle. Who knows? But they might potentially struggle. I think they've only went into a playoff round as opposed to the actual next stage of the knockouts round in the Europa League. But I think when you look back, that's a team we should be finishing above.
I don't think they were anything special, to be honest with you. I think we could have won away and we could have also been beat at home. It was just a very strange game, both games were very strange. I think in the first half of the away game, I think they had a goal chopped off or they missed a big chance. I can't mind now, but they could have lost that game as well. They could have won it. I thought they were there for the taking. I mean, you've named off all the things that have went against them. There's a war going on in their country. They're playing in front of no fans. They're playing their home matches in a different country. And we still couldn't muster a victory against them, you know what I mean? And when you actually look at, this is supposed to be Celtic on the crest of a wave and playing this swashbuckling football under Ange and Jota playing really good football, Kyogo. I can write my 10 players that have got songs, you know what I mean? And they're all superstars in some people's minds. I genuinely think that if we drew them in the UEFA Cup and you just saw them in isolation, you'd be thinking, yeah, we could get through that tie. I don't think that would be above Celtic to get through that tie. Even a good Shakhtar Donetsk team shouldn't be above Celtic. But I also felt like that team almost played within themselves at the 2 legs. I felt that team maybe could have had another gear against Celtic, you know. And if it was a straight shooter for 3rd place, I don't think Celtic could have asked for a better group. I
agree with that.
I think if we get next year, if we look at this as a marathon and not a race, then you kind of think Celtic are going to be better next year. And if we go up a level and assume everybody else stands still and you get that group again,
which doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist
happen in football.
I would be expecting us to go through, Boise, but you've got to expect the landscape to change for a lot of clubs and a lot of teams in Europe.
Football's
Aye,
moving parts, Mark.
aye.
It's
And
a
teams
completely
progress, Boise.
moving.
If
Yeah.
we're talking, you mentioned cycles there for managers. I think there's a cycle. I think there's a cycle and a shelf life for football teams. I know. I think Celtic's cycle for a squad is roughly about 30 months. I think you get
Mm-hmm.
2.5 seasons at a club with a team. And I think if Celtic are getting 3 years out of a player or 3.5 years out of a player, I think that player's either not went to the next level or I know that player that we think they are. You know what I mean? And by that I mean if they're at the level that should be taking Celtic to the next stage, they should be ready to leave us in the third season. You know what I mean? It's where we are in Scotland.
The nature of the beast.
That's the nature of the beast. I expect Rio Tatati to be one of the first big players to go. He's proved it. There's been some eye-catching moments for that boy that will be clipped over UEFA websites and scouts will pick up.
Probably clipped by his agent.
Probably clipped by his agent. As long as you don't go to Ivanovic's agent because they'll be getting linked with Real Madrid tomorrow. By the way, just on Real Madrid, I'm going to say something that's a bit bold. I don't think they'll get by the last 16. I think that's no advantage Real Madrid team. I don't think, boys. I think that's that team that won the league last year. The Champions League last year. Bear in mind, Real Madrid have won like 14, 15 of these. I think in 2 years' time, a Real Madrid fan will not be able to rhyme that fat starting 11 that won that European Cup. I think that's a vintage Real Madrid team. I think that a lot is aging. I think the two Celtic games aside, looking at the results, I think they struggled. I think a lot of the games that they won the game just by almost like I'm going to liken it to us having a pretty average or a poor Celtic but just getting through league games. Do you get what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the first half at Celtic Park and the second half at Celtic Park typified that. I think us going to like a time castle and getting battered for 40 minutes, but see the second half,
cream rises to the top.
Just pushing teams aside, you know what I mean? And then post match, me and you're saying tough first half, but second half we just stepped up a gear and we just pushed them aside, and that's what we do. It's what Champions Day. I don't think they'll get by the last 16. I looked at them and I didn't watch last night's game. I just couldn't watch it, but I wasn't all that impressed with them boys at Celtic Park. I think their football is a different beast for what we play. I understand that, but that competition is such that there is levels above levels that you don't even know exist. You know, I watched PSG beat us by not Celtic Park, and I think, aye.
Real Madrid remind me of a typical Italy at a World Cup.
Aye,
slow. They're slow making the groups, and then they lead you into this false sense of security. You might be surprised. If they win it this year, I wouldn't be surprised. I just think they're one of these teams. They have blips in the group. They have wee rocky moments.
I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked. I think put a free bet on it, to be honest with you, but I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't fall off my chair. But
yeah, they've got know-how though, Mark.
Aye.
And the one thing as well is, you know, obviously we've got a huge thing on our intensity, our press.
Mm-hmm.
It looked at times like Modric and Kroos last night, didn't they? They weren't really moving, and yet we're always in space. And you're looking at the Celtic players look like they're running as much, like they're running the heart out. Like, how are they always in space?
Do you know think what, see when Celtic are playing a team that they're a level above, the pitch looks bigger for them than it does for us. The spaces in between their players seem smaller than it does for them, and the pitch looks bigger for them. And that's the same when we step up a level and the teams are above us. These teams just have like a sixth sense of where each other are. They probably just it's like anything, any other sport. The cream does rise to the top, as you said there, but it's not only that. They're all thinking and moving and a different level for anybody else in our team, you know what I mean? And even if we had individuals that can turn on a moment of magic, like Jota, I think Hatati's capable of doing it, I think Kyogo's capable of moments of magic and all, but they've got maybe 10 players that if 5 show up, you're in trouble. You know what I mean?
It's true, mate. It's true. Now, the difference is a very interesting point, Mark, because often we're hearing, that if Celtic had took the chances, they'd probably qualify. It seems to be a narrative that's going around that's one of those feel-good vibe narratives. Now, by the way, there's a lot of truth in the fact it's an astonishing amount of attempts at goals Celtic have had. It is a ridiculous amount. As Phil said last night, so funnily, right? He says there could be a team that win the Champions League that out their whole tournament don't have created 82 chances or have had not created chances, 82 attempts on goal, right? Which I think's feasible, right? So it seems a lot, Mark. But here we get to the stage where this is the difficulty with debating Celtic. I find at times, not with the passengers in the comments, although sometimes it can go down that road, but particularly on social media and things, it can get really silly because everything's, I've been using this term recently, everything's binary. Everyone's black, white. Everyone's black, white. If you want Celtic to spend, someone else says that means you want them to go bust. And you're like, for fuck's sake. If you say you want Celtic to play slightly more savvy, that means you're parking the bus. And you're going, well, no. I've never in my life, Mark, heard one Celtic fan ever say, I want Celtic to park the bus, let alone since Postecoglou came in. Even less so, Mark, have I ever heard any Celtic fan at any stage said, we should park the bus. That's never happened, right? So see when you're saying, could we perhaps play in a way that concedes less opportunities, that doesn't mean park the bus. And the fact people are trying to put those words into your mouth suggests to me they don't have any other alternatives in mind how football can be played. And as I used to always say, Phil will be laughing, there's many ways to skin a cat. And it is not just by parking the bus or playing Ange ball. Folk need to get that completely out of their head.
I don't know maybe if they've been playing the computer and there's only two systems that they can use. It's either sit at the back or attack. You know what I mean? There's 100 different variables. I mean, even within that attacking system, there's variables, boys. And I think I think that's what's holding some Celtic back is like there's this myth that there's something called the Celtic Way, and I think Celtic have made it worse by just like using that statement to use it as the entrance to Celtic Park. And the Celtic Way has been attacking football since the very early days, you know what I mean? Scoring Jimmy Quinn and Jimmy McGrory, high goal scorers for the very, very first days of existence. We've always been an attacking football team. But that doesn't mean to say that we've got to be playing with 4 strikers or 2 wingers, 2 inverted fullbacks. Sometimes you've got to play the game itself, respect your positions. See if that means you're sacrificing, for talking's sake, a Matt O'Reilly and play 2 sitting midfielders and play 1 in front of him.
Does that mean you park the bus?
No, that means to me that would mean that my manager has looked at it and says, right, Vinicius Junior, he's going to be getting a 10-15 yard start on Juranovic because he's going to be too high up the park. I need to cover him. The same way Scott Brown covered Kieran Tierney, I need to get O'Reilly in there to help out Juranovic, show me the inside rather than the outside. I need somebody to do that. That's not you admitting that your philosophy is wrong. That's you showing that your philosophy can adapt, it can change, it can mould. It is malleable. We can do it. Now, that doesn't mean when you're attacking, you can't have your centre-backs push up a bit and still go gung-ho, but you've got to have a bit of a hybrid. You can't just go for it. And I think if you want to be a football manager, which Ange obviously is a very good one, you've got to learn from mistakes. And I don't mean learn in the normal sense. By that I mean you can't have a philosophy in your head where you say, I'm just going to make my players better at my plan. I want a manager who says, I want to make my plan better suited to the players I've got and to the level of players I've got. Because you can't think that way, boys. You can't think that way.
That's a good point, because it's got to be a two-way street on that. You're absolutely right, because what they call insanity, if you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, then, well, you know, and it doesn't work and you'll still get the same results. That's insanity. But I'm going to, just for those who think that this group was cost marked by us not taking our chances. I did the numbers on the UEFA website tonight with shots. So Celtic had 82 shots on target, only 82 shots on goal, 32 of which were on target, right? Now, against us, we conceded 79 shots, 31 on target. Now, that tells me, now, as much as it looks like Celtic, and it's brilliant on a highlights reel to say, so look at the chances we created. We were conceding next to basically the exact same amount at the other end. We were conceding just as many shots on goal at the other end. Possession stats weren't in our favour in every game either. So when I think about these things, I go, this isn't all about if we take our chances, that meant we would have got more points. I don't think it's as easy to say that when you're conceding literally, well, I mean, as a percentage, I mean, 90% the same amount of chances at the other end against better opposition that will be always more clinical because they've got then all your economics come into it and all that as well. So an experience at this level, things like that.
That's like 6 chances a game, boys. Are you going to be 6 choices a game against a calibre opposition that we've just ran through? Madrid, Leipzig, spending £40 million on players. I think you're going to do very well to pick up points in that group.
When it's that open, if you said Celtic will have 10 shots in goal, Real Madrid will have 10 shots in goal as well, who's going to win? Or 10 shots go and 9. 10 and 9. I think last night it was 9 to Real Madrid, 8 to us. But over the piece of the group, Celtic have probably had just under half a shot more on goal than their opposition. Well, I'm sorry, when we all accept that the opposition is of a higher Champions League experience, a higher cost, a better quality, guess what's going to happen? Now, if you continue to go toe-to-toe and you think we'll get better at that, that's fine. But I'm not quite sure what universe we'll be living in and what age I'll be, Mark, where Celtic can attract players playing the same way as a Man City do and expecting to compete against the elite. Because even if we get another fucking 50 transfer windows under Ange could be the manager till he's 100. Celtic will never have players as good as the likes of Real Madrid at Bernabeu. So if you're going and playing we just play one way, we only just go toe-to-toe, we just play the exact same way we do with Motherwell at home. No offence to Motherwell. I'm really not getting that. I mean, this is Kevy boy nailed it. I knew this was going to come. We don't want Ange as manager. I can't emphasize enough how this is the binary. This is the binary debate. This is the binary debate. I mean,
you're right,
you go. If you critique anything about Ange, you don't want him as manager, and that's just so unfair. And it's just putting words yet again in people's mouth. What I'm saying is,
but why do you need to say at the start of every listen? You don't need to say at the start of every sentence, I love Ange Postecoglou, but
I know,
listen,
that's true.
So I'm just going to say this, right? And I want somebody to put a wee asterisk and just put it, and it will say, this is the start of every sentence that's broadcast on this channel tonight. The manager's doing a brilliant job. He's brought a brilliant team. We love him. Nobody wants him deported. Nobody wants him sent to fucking Rwanda, right? He's great. End after it. Right? Carry on. Sorry, boys.
It just feels, I mean, I don't understand why anyone thinks we want the manager out for his first Champions League campaign not being a success. If you think he's be above criticism, then I don't understand what's happened, because he's the only manager then in the history at Celtic that's been above criticism. I remember during the Brendan Rodgers unbeaten domestic run, we got to about match day 56 and people were calling us boring. He was getting criticism then, but incredibly right now, when we take 0 wins from 6, you're not allowed to critique what Ange Postecoglou does. Well, I'm sorry. I think he deserves critique. And again, Kev, I'll bring it back up because it was your point initially. He ain't changing, so you change. Well, I won't change, Kevin. And if Ange doesn't want to change, that's up to him. But we're allowed opinion without campaigning for a manager to leave. No one's doing that. So I prefer it if you don't put words in people's mouth, because it's not fair. I want Ange Postecoglou as Celtic manager. I also want more points in Europe. We're debating how that would be possible. I think that's brilliant.
Boys, see, we were here a long time
I
before
don't
Ange
get it.
was, right? And we'll be here a long time after Ange is gone. Right? We don't support
have
Ange
debate, though.
Postecoglou. We support Celtic, right? And
True.
we don't. I know personally, I don't see Celtic as the guys throwing at the touchline, or even the men in the jerseys. I don't see Celtic as the men in the jerseys. I see Celtic as the team in the park. I don't necessarily look at the players as individuals as such, unless we're discussing a certain player. I look at Celtic as a whole. You know what I mean? I look at the team and the people who follow the shirts. I love them, but they come and go. Like in every club, you know what I mean? And Ange is no different. As I said, I'll still be here talking about Celtic long after this man's retired for the game. I hope if I'm still here, still alive, that is. But that's a ridiculous opinion that we need to change our philosophy on what we expect for Celtic. I mean, that was epitomised to me last night. I'm probably one of the few people. Unless there's something I don't know about with Jota, I was actually mortified this morning when I seen that clip, how we were celebrating that goal to go 5-1 down. That mortified me. We're no Hamilton Accies, boys. If we're Celtic, we're in the top 20 club in the world, in my opinion. Okay, we might not have the money, but our infrastructure, our fan base, our history, what we stand for as a club is amongst the very cream in this sport. And 5-1 against Real Madrid or 5-1 against Ross County. I'm not wanting my team slamming each other's arses and
here's the
high-five
thing,
each other
Here's the thing.
for a consolation goal with Bernabeu. I'm sorry.
I want your thoughts on this. See, Kevin's just done it. He's not been watching from the start. He's just said, park the bus and get pumped. What have we just been discussing?
I don't
know. I give up. Right, Kevin, I think you need to watch the show for the start. We were talking literally about how it's not just, if you think there's only two ways of playing and it's currently how Ange plays or park the bus, I can't help. Right, anyway, moving on. If there is only one philosophy, and it's the only way that Ange can play, now, that's fine. And we all need to get on board. How's Ange actually got on at his elite tournaments that he's competed in? With this tactic, or with this sort of formation, with this philosophy? When he's been faced with elite tournaments in front of him, he got 3 defeats out of 3 with Australia, but played the Ange Postecoglou way. He got 3 defeats out of 3, but he got a lot of plaudits. In the Asian Champions League, 7 out of the first, it's only been around when he entered the competition with Marinos, they had 15 years the Asian Champions League had been going for. Okay? 7 out of those 15 years, Matt, believe this or not, the J-League champions won that Asian Champions League. Ange Postecoglou's side got out their group and got to the next round, the last 16, and exited. The following round, the team that put them out went out as well. At the Europa League last year, we went out. We went out in the Conference League to Bodo Glimt. This year, 6 games, no wins. I'm just saying, there's your examples of when Ange has been at an elite tournament. That's 4. There's not a lot of points gathered, but a lot of plaudits. That's not me twisting this. These are facts. So that's no one. So no one's saying like, this. Remember the asterisks, but this has not been a failure. No one's saying it has been a failure. But this is the thing.
A success here, is it? Has it been a success?
Ange has never had elite players. You can't say that. Ange won't have elite players at Celtic. So this is the thing. Ange will never have elite players at Celtic either, Douglas Hughes. We have to be realistic.
That's a tough crowd tonight, mate. That's a tough crowd, isn't it?
I'm enjoying the debate. But this is. I'm just trying to be honest. I'm going, when you get to the World Cup with Australia, I think that's the equivalent, I would say, of Celtic at the Champions League. So he's had experience at these big tournaments. The results aren't there to back up that doing this against far better players will work, but we'll wait and see. Because the one thing, believe it or not, it sounds like I'm bashing him. Tonight, I told you on the phone, Mark, before we went on, I was going to give an alternative view. What did I also say to you on the phone? I want him in that Champions League next year to see if it actually does work, because if it does, there could be fireworks. But did I say all this to you on the phone? It's mental.
Listen, it's
I
been.
wanted to play devil's advocate and see what the reaction was, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot
Listen,
of fun.
that's the
It
thing.
just
See,
shows you no one can hear it.
If you agree with each other, there's probably no point in speaking. So it's good. There's got to be opinions about Celtic. I mean, me and you can watch the same match and have two different opinions on who's man of the match. I could say somebody's played well. You could say they played rotten. It's all through the eye of the beholder, to be quite honest with you. But some of it isn't subjective, and that's when you look at records and points taken and goals scored and chances created and conceded, and a lot of it doesn't look good for us. A lot of it doesn't look good for him. I love the guy. I think he's captured my imagination for one of the very first times I listened to him speak. I think his philosophy fits in with the way I want to see Celtic play. I want him to keep his philosophy, but also want him to structure it in a way where he's able to impact the games a bit better, and that's defensively as well as offensively. And I think maybe that's all it's missing. Maybe that's why he's got to 56 and still being in the G League, boys. So maybe that's all it's missing. I say the same about Juranovic. You don't get to 26 being world class, as some folk like to say, and play in the Polish league. I'm sorry, there's normally wee reasons why. And maybe that's his Achilles heel. I really don't know. I love the guy. Somebody mentioned there he's not got elite players. Give him the Real Madrid squad, and I'm sure he'd probably improve the players as well. But
very well. I think
he would improve. I think as a coach, I think he would improve any football team, any players. You look at Ralston, Greg Taylor, Carter Vickers. Looks to me like he couldn't have been the same man that left Spurs because he would have been picked up after somebody in the Premier League. He's improved Carter Vickers.
That's a good point.
Joe Hart says at 33-year-old, he said, I didn't think I would be excited about playing football. I said, I think I'd wake up and be excited. So he's captured imagination. All for the part, there's players that I'm sure the guys that have left Celtic probably felt disappointed that they didn't have enough time with him. We all love the guy. We don't need to say that every time we criticise him.
But Strange Love is right, by the way, because he's pulled me up. He did win the Asian Cup.
He did.
I got that wrong because he beat No, it's my fault. He beat Kuwait, he beat Oman, he lost to South Korea, he beat China, he beat the United Arab Emirates, and then he beat South Korea in the final. It's up to you how you judge that is for Australia. So I'm happy. I think right now we're playing an elite team's football without an elite team that will never be an elite team against elite teams. And that's the struggle.
You can't have it both ways.
If you can't beat the ones that you should be beating, like Shakhtar, I think it's okay to shine a wee bit of a torch on that and go, what happened in those ones then? So it's great saying everything's. It's great saying everything's.
Well, but does he not deserve that? He said what he's got to Celtic is what he was trying to do in Australia. He says at come to Celtic Park, the fans are so in tune with the football. They live and breathe football. He said, in Australia, I couldn't find that. He said, it's the Australian fan base on that 24-year fan yet. So see when you get a 24-year fan, when you've joined a club and you're embracing this 24-year culture of Celtic, that comes with some caveats, boys. You've got to take criticism after these fanatic fans. You can't have all the songs and fireworks without having the negative parts where things don't go well for you. Because not only do we talk about Celtic, we think about it 24/7 and all. And we're not all the ones. We're all the same, mate. So that means there's 1,000 different opinions and we're all entitled to them. But one thing's for sure, as a collective, I don't know one Celtic fan that doesn't think Ange has done a good job. And I think he will progress the club. He will progress the team. He will progress the team. I think that'll be escalated if he just pulls back a wee bit in certain games. That's what I'm saying. I think a lot is obviously an opinion, I think.
How do you feel ahead of the January window? Now, I know that's a wee bit down the line. How do you feel his hand's been either strengthened or weakened? Considering, obviously, he will be measured by Celtic on how he does in Europe or how he does domestically, on what sort of level of backing he'll get.
Mhm.
Now, does he get more backing because we fell so far short in terms of points in the Champions League? Or will he get less backing because they go, not quite sure that's going to work in the Champions League? And to be honest, it's only one more year of automatic qualification. We don't really want to push the boat out. I think this is the make or break thing if you want to keep a hold of Postecoglou, who's on a rolling contract, by the way, and can leave at any God-given time he wants, which is a Celtic problem, not an Ange problem. If I was Ange, I'd be sitting quite happy on that rolling contract as well. One thing I would say is I think Ange, it should strengthen his hand and just go, look at the comments that come in. Everyone's in love with me. I'm the guy they want to be here. I'm the guy everyone wants to guide Celtic to the next level. You're going to need to back me to keep me, though. And if not, I can go anytime I want, anytime I want, because I'm on this rolling deal, which makes it so easy. Has he strengthened his hand for the January window? And obviously, come next summer as well, because we don't have European football now, Matt. I can't even believe I'm saying this, until yet again next autumn.
Well, you've only got to look across the city to see how fast the opinions and football fans can change. I mean, 5 months ago, Van Bronckhorst was close to getting a statue and his name tattooed on every cunt's arse across Govan. 5 months later, they're all wanting him sacked. So there's a kind of balancing act between what Ange's position about long-term security and knowing what hand he's got. I personally think the club would be foolish to no back them in the January window. Not just because Ange Postecoglou. I think they know they've got a fan base that's had enough. I think the fan base has had. I think the COVID season just that volcano just erupted. That 20 years was building up in the Celtic fans. No strengthening properly under O'Neill to kill off Rangers. No strengthening under Stratton to kill off Rangers and get them 4 in a row. No giving Brendan Rodgers the tools that he needed, and it just erupted. It just exploded. We're only one mere arrogant transfer window away from mere calls for the share issue, the shares being transferred to the Celtic fans and getting somebody on the board. The board don't want that. I think this January window, if Peter Lawwell's in the club as much as me and you fear he is, we could see Celtic reverting to type. I heard Ange talking yesterday saying that they've already started the ball rolling on some transfer targets for January. Let's see how that goes. But I think the club's go to strike in January to prepare for the Champions League. I know there's no qualifiers. But see Celtic's record just now, we're needing 5 months to get one player settled in. We need to improve our starting 11. And we need to do that in January.
Mark, it's interesting with transfer windows because obviously, of course, as always, I will. I can't do both the sound and the sign, but I will sound the Martin O'Neill klaxon.
It sounds too loud anyway, mate. Just leave that sound. That's fucking torture.
Big Scrooge. I can't wait for you on Christmas Day. But
that's gonna be fun.
But when it comes to the backing O'Neill got, undeniably, he had brought in some bona fide players that had real know-how. Maybe not all of them that much European know-how. Sitting against Bayern Munich and stuff people forget about with Norwich City. But other than that, not loads of, but they had proper English Premier League pedigree and they were at the right age and stuff. And then we had a guy Strachan who had to completely downsize. Now, in his second season, he was in the Champions League as well. Now, he made the last 16. Now, we drew both games with AC Milan. Back 4 in the second leg was Paul Telfer. Arthur Boric, first ever Champions League campaign. Paul Telfer, 35, first ever Champions League campaign. Stephen McManus, second season in the first team, first ever Champions League campaign. Darren O'Day, youth prospect, started, first ever Champions League campaign. Lee Naylor signed for the second team in England, first ever Champions League campaign. Nakamura signed from a part of the world where we brought in plenty of players, first ever Champions League campaign. In fact, he was signed from Serie A, but his nationality is the same as some of our players.
But I think.
Neil Lennon, same amount of Champions League campaigns as Callum McGregor. Evander Snow, first ever Champions League campaign. Aidan McGeady, first ever Champions League campaign. Yuri Arasik, I think had been a sub a couple of times. In fact, he did a few at one of the Moscow clubs. And Benagura Hesselink. See, when you look at that team,
With a lot of experience at that level.
How do you think we approached that game? And it wasn't always backs to the wall in these games either. I just think it's a great comparison to make. Now, people will say football's moved on. You tell me when football's moved on from a disparity mark, when I name you Seedorf, Kaká, Pirlo, Gattuso, Maldini, Inzaghi, Dida in goals.
Shevchenko.
So you tell me the disparity wasn't always been there.
Football's always... See, that's the thing. People always romanticise about the past unless they're trying to prove something about the present. Like, see, back then, there was a lot of extremely elite players. You had Ronaldinho's, you had Zidane at his peak, you name it. There was always that disparity. You know what I mean? I don't think Darren O'Day, I mean, like that back four you named there, I was cringing. But that team managed to do so well.
McManus, O'Day, well, how did he do so well?
I think he had a manager who said, no, we watched a game in the weekend there with Martindale, right? Who knows his players inside out. He knows they can't compete with Celtic. So he says to himself, I will sit 10 at the back, put a big striker up front with my counter-attack and try and hold the ball up, right? That will work 1 times out of 15, right? We don't want to see that at Celtic. We want to see a manager like Strachan who would say, okay, let's look at all the pockets of space on the pitch. Let's try and kill off wee pockets of when and where we can. See if we stifle one part of their midfield, we can exploit space behind that, and you can just rhyme off different areas of the park and just try and make yourself competitive. Ange's making himself competitive, but he's leaving himself wide open. I mean, if you were playing any sport, if for instance, see if you were like playing in NFL, for instance, you wouldn't be playing a game that if you were like up against the best defensive team, for talk's sake, twice your size and all the rest of it, you wouldn't be trying to gain yards the same way you would try and gain yards against the weaker teams. You know what I mean? It's the same in football. If you need to play the opposition, target their weak spots, strengthening your own positives. You can't just go out there and go like that. You deal with us, we won't deal with you. Because the consequences is 15 goals conceded in 4-4. And unless we bridge the gap by making, well, there's 3 ways of doing it. You either get the money to compete with them, or you can bridge the gap by being targeting their weaknesses a wee bit better. You know what I mean? Or you can just play to your own strengths and get horsed, which we did. There's no other way you can do it, boys. You've got to look at it and say, look, we are where we are in the world. We are here, Chelsea. We need to sit and relax and just soak up the pressure a wee bit.
So we players from our youth, like Darren O'Day, who's played less games at this point than a Stephen Welsh, Lee Naylor, only 1 season in his Celtic career, having spent the rest of his career in the Championship in England. Mm-hmm. Paul Telfer, 35, he'd never played at Champions League level. We only conceded 9 goals in the 6 games, right? But we beat Benfica 3-0 at home. We beat Man U 1-0 at home. I mean, it's like, you're looking at these results going, how did they do all that?
3-2 at Old Trafford and all. We lost a dodgy penalty, I think, in that game. I know Ryan Giggs.
We didn't concede a goal at home. We didn't concede a goal at home with those defences. Like, so I'm going, I know football's moved on, it's evolved in certain aspects that I think there's a lot more teams now have access to the money that the likes of the really smaller, it was a smaller group of clubs that had access to real riches across Europe then, right? Now it's a lot more clubs have access to that money. But also, it doesn't change the fact that the gap between Seedorf and that, like, and Inzaghi running at Darren O'Day, it's just...
The gap's always been the same. The gap is the gap is
Just
the
as
same
big as
then.
now. We can't hide
If
behind
you,
that forever.
no, I think if you deny the fact, if you say the gap's always been there, it's probably just the same. Folk were saying, well, Zidane was on 80 grand and Larson was on 50, right? But see, back then, that was a huge gulp of money. You know what I mean? That's a big chasm in money. All right, we can't afford 400 grand a week for an Mbappe. But see, the difference is, an Mbappe, where it's 1995 or 2005 or 2020, is it going to come to Celtic? The gap has always been there.
And it's
It
not
just
going to go anywhere.
the money's just changed in terms of figures, but it's not going to go anywhere either. But the gap's always going to be there, mate. The gap was there. I mean, come on. I think it's folk just try to find wee arguments to suit their point. Look at it objectively. Just look at it objectively. It's
It's a
I know
great
it's
word.
hard. I know it's hard to come out of that bubble and look at it objectively. And that's probably why I'm so kind of placid about European football. Boy says I come away from it a wee bit and look at it and go, Mark, don't get yourself too excited about this. Just take it for what it is. You get the result, celebrate it like everybody else does. Have a couple of beers, enjoy it. See if you
See, but
don't.
Matt, that's like you're like a
you don't.
cat, right? As a cat who would sit on the wall and just watch from afar and go, "I'm okay. I'm a Doug." Right, and I'm like I'm chasing my tail when the group stage gets drawn, right?
That's fair.
I'm chasing my tail, going Champions League,
Aye.
and then I'm absolutely gutted when the guy or the owner that is like teasing me with a treat doesn't actually give me one.
Aye.
Do you know what I mean? And I'm away at my bed, tail between my legs, gutted, whereas you've just sat in the wall, nonplussed the whole way through. That is the difference, mate. You're a cat and I'm a dog.
It's mental. And then see if you watch me. See if you can put a video camera up and you watch me watching a Celtic v Greenock Morton in the cup. You would see a totally different animated person between me watching last night's game. In fact, I didn't even watch last night's game. I told you we went and watched Naked Gun. She wanted to see it, but I don't know, boys. I don't know. It's just fucking. I don't know. I don't know if it's better. I don't know. We've done this about 20 times, spoke about this subject, but I think maybe next year when I see a wee bit of change, like that higher caliber player that me and you hope's going to come in.
It's got to be this time round.
There's only one way that I can change my opinion, and that's for the club to do it. You said to me before, you've been conditioned just to accept we're going to get beat, and you can't understand that, right? So it's up to me to kind of try and change it. But I think that there's a huge obligation for the club to make this up and go, well, hang on a minute here. That £15 million striker for Spartak Moscow hit Jordan Larson. If he signs, we could good attacking options there. But then you get Aaron Moya instead, yeah, another striker. Yeah. And then you go, fuck me.
This is Mark, we're into the Emperor's New Clothes territory.
Mm-hmm.
And can I just say as well, I fell in the trap a wee bit as well. I remember doing a show with you, we called it the Transfer Night Forum, and we debated all summer, are Celtic really signing players, taking the Champions League? Are we treating the Champions League with the respect it deserves, with the signings that we've made? But that all being said and done, I got to the point where I went, do you know what? I actually think that's a really positive window we've had because we've not lost any of the assets and we predicted we might lose an asset. We haven't lost any, and Ange's got guys he must have targeted, he must have wanted. However, now we've got a body of evidence, a European campaign's been and gone now, and we look how much these new players were utilised in it, and you start going, wait the fuck it now. We didn't really strengthen the first team. I don't think that transfer window was treating the champion it deserved. No one. Before I can't believe I'm going to have to say this shite. But to try and have to explain to people that no one expects us to sign bona fide Champions League ready players, right? Because they all cost too much for us. We get that. Is there a higher bracket of player we could have been targeting? I'll give you a throwaway example, right? And it's not because this is all about him. Solback in it, Bodo Glimt, who was absolutely head and shoulders above everyone out the two teams over both legs. He's got to be affordable. He plays for a club with the same budget as Ross County. I would have liked to have seen someone like that come in. Someone like that. But instead, I am sure the players that have been brought in have not, unfortunately, been with the Champions League in mind. That has came back and it's better than the arse. The facts are there. The group's done. Right? We didn't win a game. So the transfer, and we know how many starts Ange's new players all got. We know how many appearances they all made between them, and we know how they performed, certain ones. I mean, that's the issue. That's where the issue comes down to. Now with the window, we're getting more of a grasp of how that transfer window really played out. Do you know the most frustrating thing for me, pal, right? Is that window was actually the most straightforward we've had in 12 years because we actually knew our destiny. There was no playoff in that murky water where you go, well, if we speculate and then we don't qualify, we're going to make a loss this year, which they're feared to do because they're bonuses and stuff, even though it's quite common for a football club to make a loss 1 year every now and then when they were going for a glittering prize. But ever, good Simple Minds song as well. But
best band in the world,
genuinely, did you see them in Jules Holland? Very good.
Oh no, I didn't.
They were on at the weekend. Oh, check it out.
Class,
very good. Very good. But I think this window was quite straightforward for Celtic to do good things because, well, you know the money that's going to be coming in. You know these accounts actually are about to come out and are a lot better than even I presumed they would be.
Aye.
So there's a wee bit of cash there. You've got the manager who's the sun shines out his arse, who's got an amazing track record in the transfer market so far, having spent very little. I think this summer was a straightforward one for the board. They know the obstacles ahead and they're weighing the distance. There was none. This was a clear pathway in the summer. Go get players and treat the tournament you're about to be in. We know qualifying for it, Celtic's never treated with respect, Mark. We know that. Because we know that by the fact of the reinforcements we brought in for the playoff rounds of the qualifiers. But now we're actually in the group stage. Now we're actually in the group stage. Can you believe? It was you who said this to me on the phone earlier. We finished the group competition with a free transfer who was 32, who hadn't really played in a couple of years in China, and we started at number 10 at number 6. Like, seeing you put it like that, you go, how are we learning our lessons yet? And that's not on Ange. This is all, in my opinion, way elsewhere.
It's every year, mate. It's every year. I mean, I don't know how many times I've sat at the end of the season and said to Big Alec next to me, I'm saying, Alec, I says, we're going to start the qualifiers with Beaton. He's like, nah, wee man, don't be daft. And 2 months later, Beaton's there. You know, you get fucking right, my 5-6 times that's happened. You know what I mean? And I thought to myself, right, the Champions League was guaranteed. We had a start date to the season. I think it was the end of June, end of July. So we knew all the unknown knowns were knowns for Celtic this year. You know what I mean? And all your unknowns didn't exist for Celtic. We knew the straight path. There was no players that was going to be getting sold. I don't think any players are going to be getting sold who were going to be impactful. We spoke about it. Maybe Turnbull. It could possibly be like a high-level squad player like Juranovic, but we didn't see anybody decimating the squad. We didn't see it, right? We thought one player would go. So we had a kind of smooth pathway into this season, I think. A great chance to strengthen. I mean, we dilly-dally did a Jota signing. Carter Vickers was early in the early days, and we did a show, the bigger, better, stronger. I don't know if you remember, boys. We did a show.
I think we called it the Transfer Night Forum. And then you said, I'm going to break this into 3 parts, boys, and I'm going to use Ange's quote, his parting quote for the season, basically, which was an amazing speech. And he says, you know, we'll be back bigger, better, stronger. And he says, now the window's closed, let's talk about, are we bigger, are we better, are we stronger? I remember it well. And I know it's not convenient for folk to remember it, though.
Well, we took stick for even debating it. And my point at the time was, and not just my point, I mean, the point I was making was, were we stronger? Yes, Carter Vickers and Jota come back, and I was delighted, you know, God, fireworks at that. But to me, that was the nucleus of the team last season who was staying. So I thought, okay, they're going to be in a second year Ange, so they're going to give a stronger version of themselves. But was the team going to be stronger? I said no. I said I want the starting 11 to be stronger. And if you remember, I think the date was June the 4th or June the 5th. And I repeated it to you on the eve of the season. I said, boys, we will start the season against Aberdeen with the same 11 as we finished it. Remember I told you at the beginning of June and I re-quoted that the evening and you went, I can't believe you're fucking right. I wasn't me trying to get one up on anybody. I was just saying, like, say,
Yeah, no, we're
sorry.
not Nostradamus FC. We get plenty wrong as well, but
of course, we've seen this happening. And the point I'm making here is, we don't want to be seeing this again. We don't want to be seeing it. We want to be saying to ourselves, next year if we win the league, I think it's our last year of guaranteed qualifications. If you make the same mistake and don't build on that position of strength, no wonder folk like me are sitting no really all that bothered about the Champions League. But guys like you who are fucking all in and focused on it, paying a lot of money to go to Champions League games, they deserve a bit better. I deserve a bit better, no, but we need to screw them up. Take this year as a good starting place for the Champions League, but we need to build on it, because if we don't, this season will happen again and again and again, and we've saw it for the last 20 years, no building on strength. We need to, as a fan base, push for it, and as a club,
that's what I agree with. My biggest worry, Mark, I'm glad you just said that, and I mentioned this last night on PMP. One of my biggest concerns is that we've got 7 months till the end of the season. See, over 7 months, we'll have beaten St Mirren another 3 times. We'll have pumped fucking Ross County another 3 times. We'll have lifted trophies. And it will get to that stage where we now start thinking certain players are 15 million and going to go to Atletico Madrid. Don't even name names, right? And this will fall in that trap again where we think the squad's untouchable and we really don't need to improve on them because they're all so good. I hope this Champions League campaign stays fresh in the memory, particularly of the fans, because the Bold, my honest belief is the Bold don't want it to be fresh in the fans' memory come May. They want your memory going into the summer to be lifting trophies domestically, and everyone goes, you know what, we're fine. They're brilliant. They're unbelievable. This is just so good. Because see, once you go into the summer with that narrative, there's no pressure on them to do a big different, a completely different transfer, summer transfer window than what they've just done this year. And unfortunately, and it's not the only reason, by the way, this campaign hasn't worked. We're not trying to say that. But my concern will be that if we do another 7 months, I think sometimes the domestic stuff can pacify the fans a bit much. And I think the reality is when you look at the competition, and we spoke about this midway through the European stage now, that's it all done, right? So see out the 18 group games Celtic, Rangers and Hearts competed in, there was 2 wins. Hearts beat a team from, I think it was Latvia, home and away. That's your 2 wins. There was 2 draws. Celtic achieved them against Shakhtar, who weren't playing the home games at home.
That 14 losses, that?
And then it's 14 defeats. That's the level, right? That's the level we're at, unfortunately, right now. We also had Motherwell go out to Sligo Rovers, and we also had Hibs get beat 7-0. Not Hibs, Dundee United, sorry, beat 7-0 off AZ Alkmaar. These are the teams that in 7 months, if we keep pumping week in, week out, we'll be heralding as heroes. I just don't want folk to lose sight of what's just happened, because I know it happens early in the season, and it's easy to forget, Mark. But I think that, the yardstick we want to be measured by, and I believe Postecoglou does as well. And this is why I think me and him would be on a more similar page than sometimes the fans. I don't think he's one of these, everyone love everything that we're doing. I think he'll be measuring his abilities, the progression of the team by how they're doing against top opposition, not, achieving victories domestically, which again is all we've got now for the next 7 months.
Well, that was last year's. That was last year's holy grail. Last year was win the league for Ange. That was his sitting back with his glass of wine and saying, "Look, I done a good job there." I think next season he's got to be saying, "Right, I need to progress myself now, not just this team." So I totally agree with you. I don't think he's satisfied to win the league. But I don't think he is now. You know what I mean?
This is it. And I think the only way we'll improve is, as you rightfully say, we need to keep Our
Yeah,
eyes. And remember, I don't know if you remember my tweet. In fact, you
I
will.
do. I do remember it.
And I said, keep your eyes on the board. And I listed the transfers that had been made up to that point. It didn't include Abelgard and Haksabanovic. I said, I'm a bit underwhelmed. And I think it was because the Moy had been signed that day. And I got hate for it, mate. You know that as well.
Oh,
I know you get loads, but I mean, that day it really
well, that was
it
bad.
blew up.
Aye.
You would like to go back to that now and revisit that and feel like, maybe there was a wee point in case there, because I do definitely think January, this summer, and by the way, that's not taken for granted that we'll win the league. It's just my genuine belief. I think there's so much negativity across the city. I know Bob McBob's in the comments. He's always a bit cheeky and that's good. But I think deep down in his heart of hearts, he's probably going, we ain't going to
But
win that league
do
this
you
year.
think? But do you think that a weak Rangers or a weak mentality, managerial wise, plays into the narrative that the club feel like they don't need to do more, and when it comes to transfer windows? I think a strong Rangers makes sure the board sit up a bit more and take notice, mate. I think if we go to, like, I know it's not going to happen.
That's fair.
See, if we go to 10 points in January, I think the board would say, enough's enough. You don't need anything. You don't need anything else, and that's always my worry.
That's fair, Mark. But only if
the fans let it.
This process we're in is still focused on the league. If we're part of this process that we're being led to believe we are, and I think we are, then
at
my
board level,
belief would be that it's Europe that the focus is on. So Ange should have the courage of his convictions to say, if we're 10 points clear right now and you think that's it, job done, brilliant. Now I want Champions League players, because that means there's another 40 million coming in the pipeline. And he could start going down that road with them. And this will be where it's very interesting. My deep down belief is we will win the league again. And it's now, it's one of these things I almost think you're forcing the board's hand here. I mean, we know there's got to be money there. One thing I don't think Ange will tolerate is 2 points again next season in the Champions League, Mark Kearney.
No. You got to look at any business and you've got to improve on last year's figures. That's surely you always talk about the KPIs. I think that's you've got to build on it.
Stop saying you're spot on, mate. I forgot. What's the T.N.F? Get your questions in. We've not dealt with any. We'll do a
Listen, no. We spoke about that guy's comments.
I know, but that was me just arguing with someone. Stubbsy's spot on.
Hey, Stubbsy, he's a question then, Stubbsy.
He's right, though.
Aye. T.N.F. No, of course. I mean, you've got to build it. I mean, you've got to build on what you've got. I mean, surely season 3. If you're not building on season 1's progress, then there's something seriously wrong there. This board will revert to type if we let them. Hey boys, looking like they're putting a Guinness.
The fucking Boris Johnson haircut, honestly. I don't know what I'm doing, man. I get your points. And who wants to talk? I'm up. Well, we could do a couple of points before you got your bed, Mark, can we?
Aye, go for it, man.
Call it half 10. Call it
half 10, man. Half 10, right, man. That sounds good to us, wee guy.
There comes Chris. Boise, how much will the board spend in the summer if we win the league? The thing is with this question, it's $1 million question because, if they had their way, it would just be $1 million. Now, that won't be the case. But I think it depends how the transfers work now with Mark Lawwell in the board, Chris, in the transfer strategy room, whatever they want to call it. There's leadership groups there. There's probably a transfer group. I think Ange has been given a lot of the final say. Particularly since the James McCarthy, Liam Scales signings, maybe even Joe Hart. I don't know if that would have been an Ange signing per se. I think that would have been put to him and he's went, aye. I think now he gets more sort of, he's got more sort of a stronghold on who it is we go for. But funds-wise, is Ange limited to the bracket he can look at? And that will all come to light. How much will we spend in the summer? How much do we need to spend is an easier question. Because we need to spend more than what we did this summer. And every summer, if the club's progressing, we'll keep spending a wee bit more and a wee bit more.
Aye.
Let's see if there's any other couple. Merrill, will Ange kick the arse out of getting signings from the Asian market? I'll put that to you, Mark, because Obviously we've been linked with Koyabashi, a centre back. I mean, let's be honest, he's got good form for signing players from that market. I mean, I'm all for trying to always bring up the level of player we're signing, but we can't deny we've been shocked. I think if everyone's been honest, they can kid on now. Oh, I knew he'd do well. Kyogo and Tati in particular have astounded us of the level of ability they've brought from the J League.
Well, I think what we've noticed this week is it's maybe the J League doesn't rate the Scottish League, so maybe their best players will squish it in this league, and it sounds like it could well be the case. I think if he's noticed there's an untapped market there, and see the more we can tap out that market before teams start buying players. See Hatatis, they become we really be able to afford these players because the wage brackets have gone up, and so will the transfer fees. So I think getting them while it's cheap, you know what I mean? Get them in while they're keen to come to Scotland, because the more successful we get with buying these players, the higher the price will go for these players. I know. I think Ange maybe had his eye on players when he's the manager of Marinos that he just couldn't attract or afford.
Of course, mate, he's admired them. Yeah.
And he's went, get them in.
I tell you what, do you remember Gordon Strachan did it, Mark? Remember he went to Middlesbrough? And he brought in, I mean, he took it too far, but he signed Steve McManus, Scott McDonald for us, and Barry Robson. And Willow Flood was just taking the piss. I mean, you must have photos.
That was Eddie Gucci, wasn't it? That was Eddie Gucci.
Aye, that was easy to Gucci. Aye. But then he signed Kevin Thompson, Chris Boyd, and you went, these are obviously players that he's looked at. But anyway, I digress. But I don't think it's about going as far as that because it's very difficult to adapt. Well, John Duncan, this is an easy one, Matt. Name 2 positions we must spend big time on. Right back.
Right back. I think right back needs addressed if you don't think Ralston is good enough. Personally, I think Ralston is good enough. But he's got to be Croatian, based in Poland. Monty, you're spot on, mate. You're spot on, son. Like your style, mate. No, I think we need a striker. And we need a CDM. We need a number 6.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about number 6 who's just got to do a job. I'm talking about a commanding number 6. My dad says we need a sweeper, like an actual 1990s style sweeper, and we need one of them. And I think that'll progress us in Europe too. That's my 2. I don't know if you're froze there, boys.
I did freeze, mate.
That's all right, mate. Were you shocked at my statement there?
No, I wasn't. It just must have been when it froze. I must have been raising my eyebrows in complete agreement as always with the judge, mate. Yes. You know that. I was in agreement, mate. I don't know why it froze. Apologies. Step back now, me pulling like mad icky faces, you know what I mean? On the channel
there's some belters to be fair enough.
Right, let's have a wee look here. Because there was another one. Craig M comes in. Boise, is the current youth system failing? I've got a theory on this. I think Steve McManus, Craig, was not demoted to the B team, if you want to call it that. I think Steve McManus had a year working with Ange. Ange wasn't impressed with what he'd seen with the B team. I don't think he's been impressed, though, throughout Scotland. It's just my take, judging by the fact he's only signed Dundee United's goalkeeper as a backup. That's the only player he signed domestically, which is kind of unheard of from 3 windows, but I don't blame him.
No.
And the youth team, we've not seen anyone. We've not seen any new faces come through from Ange. We're not one, which is quite, again, unheard of considering the reputation. In fact, the proof, he makes players better. He does make players better. I think he's been very disappointed by what he's seen. So Steve McManus, I believe, has went down there to get, because he knows, Ange now knows he's well versed in his methods. I think that's the plan, is Ange is looking at Steve McManus to go, I need you to show them what I do on a day-to-day basis, because they need to seriously be, they need to be of a far higher standard.
They've got to be, mate. They've got to be playing the same type of football as well. But they probably
same type of football. Yeah, that's true.
Your first team's got to play the same way as your under 18s, because the COVID season proved you never know when these guys need to step up. Never know what's going to happen.
No.
We could have an outbreak of fucking Spanish fucking flu or something and lose your full back line. So no, I agree. We maybe they're probably been sent down there to just get it tobered up to his style of football and to even a better standard. I think the B team is doing absolutely. I think they're 14 points behind Rangers in the B League, and they're looking fucking shite, to be honest with you. But it might be a long process for them at the B team. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think Postecoglou's been a wee bit disappointed what he's seen
I don't blame him, mate.
domestically.
We lost a goal yesterday before. We lost a goal yesterday before the scoreboard came up. You know that? See the youth game. Then we lost a goal. Like, so it pops up like Celtic are playing. It pops up the teams, and we lost a goal before it came up. I think they lost a goal with something like 6 seconds or something.
That's mad. That is mad. Last question, Gucci Truther. Boy, say to Mark, do you think Ange will let Gucci or Scott Robertson out the dungeon anytime soon? No. I think for guys like Ideguchi, who was signed in January, I think for guys like Scott Robertson, who has a growing reputation, in fact, it's kind of probably been at the same level now for about a year or so. I think when you see the elevation to the first team that Aaron Moy's been allowed to make, and I knew his name would come up, but he's the weak link out the guys who get a regular slot. The rest are all getting, opportunities based, I think, a lot more on merit. He's been elevated, he's been fast-tracked into the first team, and I think that would be quite deflating for them. My honest hunch, if you want it, Gucci Truther, obviously judging by your avatar name, you like the truth. I think Ideguchi will be gone in January. I wouldn't like to speculate, but it's easy to say he'll be back in Japan then. He could go anywhere. I don't fucking know, but I don't think he'll be around. I think he'll be gone in January. And Scott Robertson, do I see him making many more appearances between now and the end of the season? I don't know. I don't see that being the case in the slightest. No, and Ange will sign another 3 number 6s in the January window and play Matt O'Reilly there.
Exactly, mate. I think you'll see. I think there's more chance that Gucci go to the London Tower, to quite the Tower of London, to be then getting game time. I think he looks like the player he was brought in because he's the only one who knows how to turn the heating on, and he's been brought here to help the other guys settle. He knows how to work the thermostat. He's just not going to. It reminds me of Bowie Kawasi. I remember saying he was called himself the Lion. Remember saying it must be the Lion Bastard. There's no way that guy's going to fit into Celtic style of football. I think he just looks too small, too lightweight, and too shite. That's my opinion. Sorry, mate.
No, that's absolutely fine. The judge has spoken. And we will leave it there, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a brilliant T.N.F tonight. And Stubbsy, absolutely spot on to call us out on the lack of points being brought up. And I'll make sure next week that starts at a far earlier point in the show, because that was poor on my part. Apologies. And you were right to call us out. And I'm glad we got through a few quick fire. We might do that. We might, maybe next week speak about a few at more length and then do a sort of quick fire last 10-15 minutes to the show. Mark, you up for joining us for the T.N.F next week?
I'm there, mate, with bells on.
The judge
I'm there, son.
Be there. We've got Nostalgia tomorrow night. It's the final part of Martin O'Neill month. I will be appearing, but of course it'll be Phil and Liam Punk are the main characters on that. But I'm looking forward to that, and obviously a real shame what happened at the end of Martin O'Neill's final season. We'll be talking about that. Going to the game on Saturday, birthday weekend, Mark. Hopefully I'll catch you outside the ground before it.
Aye.
Or a wee high five, something like that, mate. I'm sure we'll see you there.
Yeah.
Anyone else who's in the comments, don't worry, I'm not going to charge you £15 for a VIP ticket. But if you're up and about and you do see us, say hello. Well, I'm always up for the banter.
I actually heard after somebody else in the bus that you're selling signed photographs on eBay, boys. Is that right?
I'm doing actually the video messages. Merry Christmas and all that. I do all that, man. Because that's the wrong reasons I'm in this game for.
Well, see if some of them can do it. I mean, who's that? Who's that guy? Who's that old Rangers player, Duncan Ferguson? He just shouts at the camera. He just says, "How do you get school homework you're not doing? Is that right, Jimmy? Is that right?" And then people are paying on 20 quid to do it. I can do that. I'll put a wee napkin on my head.
Mark,
no,
I might pay you 20 quid for a Judge Kearney rant.
I'll do it, mate. I rant about anything. Education, health. Right. You better get to your bed early tonight, because Santa Claus will come in and steal your presents off you.
Guys, I called you the elf on the shelf earlier, which did have me laughing.
Oh, I get called that. a robot yesterday, see in the chat. Like,
A
you get one
robot?
of the, I know you get the robots that come in and like purge the chat and say mad things like, "Oh, here's a link to buy like new slippers." What would my robot name be? What would my robot name be if I was a robot? You've got to be something funny there. I need to get an answer for the next show.
They've
A
got-
funny answer. The funniest answer wins a signed Boise
But
bus.
someone in the comments on the bus called you
Aye.
a robot. They
See,
thought,
I think
they thought.
my robot should get that come in and try and sell you fucking anything on top of it.
That's amazing. Well, cheers again, Judge Kearney, and thanks to everyone in the chat as always. Remember, please do hit that like button when you're leaving, because it does get us more traction overnight on the YouTube channel. If you've not hit subscribe yet, please do, because so many more people watch than actually hit the subscribe button, and we're so close to that 3,000 mark. It'd be great to hit that before our 1 year anniversary in a month's time. That's us. See you later.
Take care, guys.
Comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.